Bow wow.
Welcome to DogStar.
Each week we sit down with a star of hip-hop and R&B, and this week we're sitting down with Crowfather.
How you doing?
What's up? Thanks for having me.
Thank you for coming through. It's been a long time coming. We're glad we can chat face to face.
Hell yeah. Yeah.
But like always, we want to dive right in. We want to get to the very beginning. So were you born in Minnesota?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very, very cool. I thought I heard something in a track that said something about Colorado, so I was like, what's the real story?
Oh.
We might be taking your lyrics too literally.
You might. No. Okay, yeah. I know what you're talking about. But no, I was actually born in Minneapolis. Yeah.
Cool.
Tight.
Yep.
And then, yeah, still live in Minneapolis.
Yep.
So
Who
On the
was-
south side.
Who was influencing you musically growing up? Who was playing? Who controlled the radio?
Me.
Okay.
Well, for the most part. Parents a little bit, but
Were they musical at all?
no. Mom wrote a little bit, but that was about it. But other than that, like no real musical influences outside of just like what I consumed. That and what my friends and I would just kind of listen to.
Interesting. Can you remember maybe your first CD or?
Oh yeah. First CD that I ever like sought out and bought on my own was the Space Jam soundtrack.
Yeah, we were just talking about the Quad City DJs the other day.
That was a solid soundtrack. There was a lot of good, a lot of good tunes on there. Good people who we don't, I guess, maybe want to mention. Now?
Yeah.
And I assume you enjoyed the film.
Oh yeah.
Or heavily
Of
influenced by
course,
the film.
Of course.
Yeah.
Oh, the film was awesome. I mean, it was timeless. I'm not gonna make any kind of comment on the sequel. I just when I heard it was coming out, all I said was good luck.
Didn't even go see it?
I
Don't want to risk it.
I was like, I'll see it at home maybe, and then by the time I had heard like a couple of friends seeing it, they were like, don't bother. I was like, oh okay, and they're like, yeah, it's it's for the kids. I think we were trying to capture some nostalgia again.
It's not a
It's like,
slam jam.
Yeah. No, definitely not.
And then, so when was like the earliest feeling you got that you maybe wanted to do
Oh, okay.
music? Or like, what was like the first hint, in the retrospective? Is it going to be an English class? Is it going to be a choir class or like
Music
a band
video
class? Yeah, playing the recorder.
In retrospective, it was there was like a couple of moments. So there was probably, I think, like one of the first times I saw like a hip hop music video,
Mm.
and I was just like, that looks really cool. And then like as I got older and was able to find more music on my own and kind of do that, it was like really hearing the things that I wanted to hear, I guess, where it was like I was listening to rock because that's what my friends wanted to listen to, and that's what I was kind of like I had grown up with, and what but Linkin Park is what I listened to the most. Not just because of the content, but because Mike Shinoda was spitting bars. And so I was like, no, I really like rapping along to this as well as like singing. And then it was also like it didn't hurt that I never really could sing. And so I was like, I like the rapping parts because it doesn't matter if I can sing or not. No one's going to yell at me for being off key. Like if I can nail those cadences,
Right.
no one's going to say anything. And so I really like that. And then that kind of led me into like, I mean, I'd always like when I look back, and like you say in the retrospective, like you always think like maybe it started at like 13, 14, whatever. But like when I find old like mix CDs from like when I was like 11, 12,
Whoa.
like even then I was finding ludicrous. Like even then I was listening to like T.I. and like Wu-Tang, Method Man, all those guys, where it was like there's most of the mix CD is like the front 10 songs are like R&B and like rock loaded, and I feel like I was doing that in case my parents were listening. Whereas on the back end it was like DMX,
Right.
like the stuff I wasn't supposed to have, but the stuff that I really liked listening to because that was like that was the stuff that I was finding relatable, was the stuff that was like the raw, the angry, that's where I was at. And so.
And was that just the music that you and your friends were listening to, or was it music that was like, hey, listen, you can't listen to this music? And so was it immediate rebellion, or did you have an older sibling? I'm still wondering how you guys
I was the oldest.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I was the
Sick.
oldest. No, I was the oldest, and so that was, like I was the guy that was, like, trying to hide all of my bad influence music
Interesting.
Mm,
because I knew if the little brothers got it, they were gonna let it slip, and then that was
mm.
gonna be and
Then
then
you'd
I
be
was gonna get in
busted,
trouble.
yeah.
Yeah, because it was gonna come back to me. How did they
Right.
find this? Oh, we know how they found it,
We
like, that kind
know.
of a thing, yeah. Um, I remember there wasn't ever, like there's part of it was, like, the rebellion thing, 'cause it was like, all the cussing and everything, it's like, I'm not supposed to be listening to this, but there's
Mhm.
something cathartic and, like, you feel the release when you swear, and so it's like, it's nice. But I do remember, like, specifically "What's My Name" by DMX.
Mm.
It's got a very aggressive opening, and so, like, my dad had heard me downloading that, shout out to LimeWire, uh, and was like, "I don't know, you need to be listening to this," and he was just like, "Is there a clean edit anywhere?" And I laughed,
Mm.
and that got me in trouble, and then I couldn't download music for a
Oh,
while
no.
because I was like, "A clean edit?" And I was like, "Half the song's gonna be bleeps."
Right. Busted.
Busted, yeah, and then you got in trouble, and it was like, "Well, this is why this is the only reason you're listening to it. Why are you listening to it?" And it's like, at that time, it's like you don't have the you know, the thoughts, I guess,
Mhm.
to really articulate why you like it.
Hmm.
So,
But still, I love that organic kind of discovery,
mhm.
that natural discovery of hip hop. Even, yes, saying your friends were listening to more rock too.
Yeah. And that was like I was always kind of looking for different things, and then it was also like my childhood was split between Wisconsin and Minneapolis.
Mm.
And so I was born here, and then when I was an infant, my mom moved me to Wisconsin, where I met the first stepdad. And then I was back and forth to Minneapolis every other weekend.
Whoa.
Mm.
And so it was like I had two different friend groups constantly. And then I was also like every couple years we moved. And so it was like I always had new friend groups.
Mhm.
And so like because of that, I was kind of always getting new like, what are you listening to? Like, what are
Mm.
you listening to? Which is kind of like the cool side of it. And so I was like, but always coming back to Minneapolis where it was like I had a couple of friends that always had their ear to hip hop. And so that always like I would be listening to that. And then when I moved to Minneapolis full time for high school, and henceforth, um, that was when I really was like I dug into like what was to be found as far as like the underground scene at the time, and then also like talking to my friends who had like family in the South, and it was like, what are you listening to?
Right.
What was that mixtape you had on in the car riding home from practice the other day? Like, what was that? Like, and so that was always cool because I was always like, I've always been that way with music, where it's like there's always another perspective
Totally.
because it's like in my mind, and especially with hip hop, because it's like anyone can do hip hop. And so there's the two sides of that. Like anyone can do hip hop because then you get all sides of hip hop, whatever. But and the thing that I love about it is that anyone can do hip hop. And that kind of brings us back to like our most as humans, like the most archaic form of art for us, which was storytelling. And so it's like before we had any kind of written form or whatever, you had the Odyssey or the Iliad, you had Homer telling his stories and stuff like that, and it was just tradition to be passed along. Yeah,
Mhm.
and every culture has that.
Right.
And it's like I got a friend of mine that moved to Australia a few years ago, and he was talking about how like different regions and different families have songs that they sing to their descendants, which like if you pay attention to like your area and your region or whatever, and you sing that song to yourself, it'll help you find your way home because
Wow.
it'll like tell you what rivers to follow, what mountains to look for, and like all this other stuff. And so it's like in my mind, that's what hip hop is,
Yeah.
Mm.
where it's like that's our roadmap to our soul, and it's like we find the people that we resonate with, and then kind of bring them on the journey with us.
Hmm.
Yeah, and so that's why I've always kind of like I've always been like had an ear to everything, and so like started out listening to like a lot of rock, a lot of whatever. But then it's like once I found hip hop, it was kind of like I was locked in.
Yeah.
And
Did you start writing right away then, or?
um, low key, yes.
Mm.
In secret.
In secret. Because this was um like I knew who M was, but I didn't I didn't it was like this weird whole thing where I was like it was hip hop, but I recognized right away that I would be a guest in the culture.
Mm.
And so I didn't know that I had a place. And so I was like writing things on the down low, like having this dream of like maybe someday I could allowed to be a rapper and all this stuff. And like always wanting to be very respectful of it. And like
Mhm.
and then like as time went on, seeing other Caucasian artists, guests in the culture, moving with respect, and seeing that like, if I if I have a story to tell, then then it's okay. If I move with respect and I have a story to tell and I show that like this is what I want to do, this is the craft that I came here to do, like then I'm good. And so that's kind of like I've been so cautious over the years and just contemplative with everything that I do, but like also through therapy and everything, eventually found I had a story to tell. And so then it was like stopped writing in secret and started being like, hey, I'm gonna start doing hip hop now. Because like that whole time, like a roundabout story, that whole time while I was writing in secret and like kind of doing this whole like wanting to rap thing, I was also like making sure that when I did decide to do this, that my craft was there.
Mm.
And so even though I wasn't telling people that I was going to rap or I was writing raps, I was writing poetry.
Mm-hmm.
I was working on my storytelling.
Mm-hmm.
I went to college for creative writing.
Oh.
Like, and that was like, I decided that if I was going to go hone anything for 4 years and spend thousands of dollars on it, it was going to be something that I would do for the rest of my life.
Right.
Like, period. And so creative writing is what I went for because even if like still in the back of my mind, like hip hop is what I really want to do. But like if for some reason I don't find space, then at least I can still use my writing.
Can you remember any of your like early creative writing projects, or like how'd you like get into that? Because that's like a big. You're doing a lot of writing to do that in college, so it's like
actually, yeah. There was. I mean, I think the one story that really made me want to write creatively was we had to come up with. It was like a prompt I'd had in high school. Like it was junior year, maybe senior year, and it was to come up with your own Greek myth.
Cool.
Yeah, and it was like to come up with the reason for something existing, and it's like it's something menial or whatever. I think I chose a waterfall, and I was like, no, this waterfall exists because it was a titan that like died while mourning, and that's like the forever tears.
Wow.
Yeah, and it was like this whole story that I told, and I was like, that was really cool. And then like from then on, I was kind of like, maybe the writing thing, like maybe like I've been doing this just kind of for fun, but then like I'd gotten so much praise from like a couple of friends and from my teacher that were like, hey, like this wasn't bad. And so that kind of like made me start thinking like, oh, maybe this is something like I could actually do.
Nice.
And is this while playing hockey still, or
No, I grew up playing hockey, so that was like there's like the joke that Minnesotans learn how to walk and then they learn how to skate. So like my mom moved me to Wisconsin when I was an infant, but like was still very Minnesotan herself. And so like by the time I was 3, I was skating.
Oh wow.
Yeah, and so from from when I was 3 till I was like 10 or 11, I played hockey.
Okay.
Every year. And then we stopped because 11 is when you hit Pee-wee, and that's when you start traveling more.
Right.
And I had siblings, and that is expensive for a single parent, and so that was like no.
Right.
Couldn't do it anymore, so then I had to do football. And
Okay.
I'm not a big fan of football.
How long did you play football?
A couple years.
Okay.
Yeah. A couple years in middle school, gave it up for a while, and then I did it a couple years in high school just for something to do, like a reason to hang out with my friends after school. Like that was pretty much why. Because I was like, I was never big enough to like be a starting player or whatever. Like I went to De La Salle for high school.
Oh, cool.
And so like we had dudes that were good. Like at the time, like I'm pretty sure we had a couple of guys that like were there to play football.
Whoa.
And so yeah. And so it was just man. Like so I was like, cool. I'm here to hang out and practice and then like collect a ring if we get there. But otherwise it was just like just hanging out.
Right. Extracurricular activity.
Yeah, it's just extracurricular, just learning decent exercise routines, like building some decent friendships. I still talk to a couple of the guys that we still like ride home with like every day.
Cool.
Yeah, so that's cool.
But we're able to transfer the passion into creative writing. That's awesome.
And that was kind of, it's like I talk kind of like football, like or sports, whatever. But like I still have an appreciation for that stuff. Like I still love watching Vikings games and stuff like that. And I feel like I have more of an appreciation just because it's like I tried to do that and you understand how hard that really is.
Oh, totally.
Yeah. But also like I have an appreciation for like for my dad a little bit for pushing me to like do that even though I really didn't want to. Because it helped, if anything, it helped to show me where my path really was. Because like I learned from an early age, like I'm not like physical things, not me. That's not I'm not built for that kind of stuff. Like even doing I did carpentry for a little while. And that was like by the first like year and a half or whatever I was through that. Like I'm sitting there with like my master carpenter that was like training me, who's been doing it for 35 years, and him and I are aching about the same pains in our knees.
Oh no.
And he was like, "This isn't." He's like, "Dude, this isn't right." He's like, "You just started doing this," and I was like, "That's what I'm saying." I was like, "I'm not too proud to admit, like I'm not built for this." I was like, "All my assets are up here. Like this is." So that was like the same thing in high school. It was like every time I got run over in practice or whatever, and just went home just beat up. I was like, it doesn't like whatever. Like I could see you in English class tomorrow. You're gonna read my assignment and be like, wow. Like and that's the difference between us. And so it was like it helped me come to grips with like who I was, I guess. Yeah.
Did you ever recite these stories or poems aloud to your class? Or can you tell us about first time on stage?
Oh, first time on stage was college.
Okay.
And did that change your relationship with hip hop, like you were saying?
It started to, because again, like I was always like, still like moving with respect, like trying not to like do it. Like, am I just gonna be another white kid trying to rap? Yeah. And then it's like 18, 19. I had seen shout out to there's a spoken word duo called Yellow Rage. They're awesome. They came to our college down at SMSU.
Wow.
And did this like culture shock thing and saw them and I was like, what is that? And then like had also around the same time talked to the late great Idea. Rest in peace. At Puppy Dogs and Ice Cream.
Whoa.
Yeah, I know I'm throwing out names right now. At the Triple Rock. Although not really but Puppy Dogs and Ice Cream, that was like a side project he was doing. And so it was like me and my friends went. I don't remember even how we heard about it. I feel like this was like the early days of Twitter. And we were following either Christoph Crane or Impulse or whoever. And like saw that they were doing this side project with Idea. And I was back from college for a weekend. So we go to this show that was like $12.
Right.
To stand literally like I have an old phone that I booted up, like an old flip phone. And there's like pixelated, grainy photos of Idea like this far from me because he like kept doing that thing where you jump into the crowd and just start rapping. But like that show, because it was just there's nobody there. There was like 30 people in the whole place, and so I was like, I've got a moment, and so I was like, hey, can I talk to you about something? Like I'm a creative writing student. You know, I know you talk about being a writer and being a poet aside from like being a rapper and everything, and all these things that you talk about. Kind of going down that path of like trying to find like where I'm going to land. I really want to end up in hip hop. How would I bridge the gap?
Can we cut you off there? We got to take a break. We'll save his answer for after the break.
Follow Crowfather on Instagram, Crowfather MPLS. Everywhere else, Crowfather. Pretty easy to find.
CrowfatherMPLS.com. Follow us at DogStar Podcast. We'll be right back talking about the evolution and what his advice for Michael Larkins was.
We'll be right back. Bow wow. Bow wow.
Welcome back to DogStar.
We're sitting down with Crowfather, getting the origin stories, learning about your path to hip hop. You said you were making sure not to step out of line or like find yourself out of place in it.
And had a chance encounter with Idea.
Yeah. Yeah, so I had asked him like, I had basically said that I wanted to make a bridge to hip hop, but I was like, as a writer, like, how do I do that? And one of the things he had mentioned was do slam poetry. And he was like, do spoken word because that had helped him to bridge the gap.
Yeah.
And so I was like, oh, okay. And I was like, cool. And then that had the spoken word duo that I talked about, Yellow Rage. I had either seen them just before that or right after that. And so it was like brain was like lightning, and I was like, oh, okay, that. Got it. And so then started looking up more slam poets, and just kind of like at first, roughly emulating and like trying to find some kind of cadence, but that slam has its own cadence in general versus like everything else. And so I was like finding that, and then like I did that for a couple years in college where I hosted open mics.
Whoa.
Yeah. And was like, I would work on slams and bring fresh slams to open mics like every month or so. I think it was like every month and a half was the cycle we had it on. And then I would also have like classmates come through and read pieces that they had been working on to kind of test them out if they had readings coming up or if it was just stuff that they were working on to try and get published. So it was kind of a cool thing. And then, like, again, like, we talk about looking back, like, retrospective, like, not realizing how much I was actually doing. As far as, like, taking 20 credits or something and then working 2 jobs and then also hosting these events and then,
Whoa.
like, yeah, doing all this stuff. And I was just like, when did I sleep? Like, I don't. And then even when I and then it's like, I'm pretty sure I slept okay. But then, like, how? And now it's like, can I have some of that now? Because it's like, I feel like you get some more focus and you have some more vision, but then you have less energy to do anything with it. So,
But that's cool. So started doing, and then so that was all based on the advice he had given
I
you
think
at
kind of
the
the advice he
time,
had
or
given me, and just because,
just
like,
always stuck with you?
it stuck with me, and it's just the reverence I had for his writing
Definitely.
in particular. Because it was always like, he's known for his freestyles and all that. Yes. Like, he was an immaculate freestyler. He was crazy. But I love, like, By the Throat. Yeah. Like,
Masterpiece.
it's incredible. Like, E&A Day is wonderful. That's like, to me, that's like a masterclass in emceeing. But then you go to By the Throat, and that's storytelling. Like, that's how you put a novel into an album. Like, that was wicked. And so, like, especially at that time, I held him in such reverence that I was like, got it. This is what he told me to do. That's what I'm going to do. And so then I did that for a minute, and then kind of also, again, just, but it allowed me to, like, find an avenue to find other perspectives.
Yeah.
Because then it was like, I started looking at, local poets, and then hearing from them, hearing their stories, getting their perspectives, and then not adding that spice into, like, my own, like, immortal mix of, like, who am I? And then regurgitating whatever I could whilst doing my undergrad program and, like, kind of working on my voice. So yeah, no, I wouldn't say he was the only kind of influence to send me down that path for sure, but, like, he was one of the ones that was like, it was like a tipping point.
Wow.
Because that was like that moment where I felt like I went from really being on the fence to, like, I was standing on it one-footed and kind of, and then there was, like, within a few months, I was at a hip hop show at First Ave, and I was there with one of my best friends, and I just remember looking at him, and I was lost in thought, and he was like, "What's up?" And I was like, "I want to do this."
Whoa.
And he just then do it. And then, like, I was like, "All right, here we go." Yeah, exactly. Got it. And
That's
so then
it.
from then on, it was kind of like, yeah, I do this. But then I wouldn't say until, like, the last, like, few years or so, I really started, like, all right, I got to give it some serious effort.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, one question we love to ask, did you have any previous MC names? Or when you were doing poetry, is that a alias type
Oh.
thing?
No.
So
Was it
that's
just Nick the
your
slam
name,
poetry
and
guy?
that's
Yeah, I mean, so just because Nick White, because that was my name. It was one of the adopted names for my family. So that was, like, before my name changed and everything.
But that's a crazy level of vulnerability that hip hop artists don't necessarily have, because you have your artist name, but you're putting everything out there. Your first name, last name, that's wild.
I mean, it was like, well, yeah, just with the poetry and
Right.
stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And that's kind of, it is a little different. It is definitely
Totally.
a little different. I get what you're saying. Because you can't really hide behind, because even though I try not to keep any real difference between me and, like, Crowfather, I guess. Because part of my whole thing is, like, I try to rap my truth, or at least, like, my feelings, my philosophies kind of
Yeah.
things about whatever, my resilience, my mental health, all that. And so, like, I try not to keep a line between them, because most of what I rap about with Crowfather is, like, about being, like, a good person and being, like, having a healthy, sound mind and all that. Like, I try to live that at the same time. But it's like, but it's also different from, like, this isn't something Crowfather did. This is Nick Northrup.
Right.
This is what he wrote about Saturday. Like, and so, like, I get what you're saying. It's definitely
Yeah.
different, but it's also, like, I don't know. I love it. It's weird. It's like,
Was it always Crowfather from day one?
No.
Like, how long did
No,
you?
that took a minute. Actually, Crowfather wouldn't have happened without spoken word, without slam poetry. One of the last surviving slam poems on YouTube, I'm pretty sure, is called "For the Crows," and it was this poem that I'd written at the time, because I had just taken myself to therapy on my own for, like, the first time. Like, I'd been through a lot in my childhood, been through a lot with whatever, and, like, had dealt with a lot of trauma that I didn't realize I had dealt with. And so then, like, college, I was starting to, like, you're on your own for the first time, and they're like, there's nobody to blame but yourself for your bad relationships. And so I was like, huh. And so I, like, took myself to counseling to try and figure some of these things out. And whilst I was doing all of this, there was also, like, this crow that was, like, outside my window every day at, like, 8 o'clock squawking. And I remember one morning I woke up, like, kind of in a fit, and was like, my bed was positioned right next to my windows, and I kind of twirled over and cracked my window with my heel.
Oh.
And so it broke, and so then I could hear him even louder.
Oh, no.
But then it's like, after a couple weeks, I'm getting up at 8 o'clock every day. Like, I'm showering, I'm cleaning the house, like, I'm doing all this stuff, and, like, dude's kind of waking me up. And so then I also started noticing them more just around town. And then I noticed, like, every once in a while, like, they would dive bomb in front of cars. I'm like, why do they do that? And then, like, started thinking of, like, and, like, just these weird things, whatever, doing the writer things, trying to find something to write about, and then end up looking up crows and finding out they're wildly intelligent. And then also start thinking, like, I was smart enough to take myself to therapy because I know I have depression. Like, what if these crows got depression? And that's why they keep diving in front of cars.
Whoa.
Because they're like, I don't know if I want to be here. I'm going to see if I make it. And so then, like, I wrote this whole poem around, like, relating people with depression to crows as, like, kind of like, you see all of these other birds who have, like, these beautiful voices and these flashy colors and whatever, and they have good reputations. And then you have crows who are, like, loud, and they're kind of raucous, and they've got, the dark feathers, and they have a bad reputation. And so it's like, why would you ever want to be a crow? But then at the same time, I was like, in my mind, like, yeah, but I've been walking around telling people openly that I have depression.
Right.
And that talking about it helps me. And so then I was like, crows, people with depression. I was like, just because our voices, like, have something less fortunate to say doesn't mean it's any uglier than the next person. And so that was kind of like where I started making that relation of, like, for the crows. And so then after I did that poem, all of my, like, my friends that had heard it, all of my classmates that had been there, like, started calling themselves my crows, like, as, like, a joke and kind of an endearment thing. And so it was like, I loved it. And so it made me feel great. And then, like, fast forward, a year or so later, when I was, like, looking to record my first, like, demo, like, I had a couple of names that I was playing with, but I was,
what were they?
I thought about Witness for a minute, but that was
Okay.
taken. That's a dude locally, actually. I'm
Cool.
pretty sure there was a Witness that was around here for a while. And, like, rapped about, like, kind of the same, like, conscious stuff too. And I was like, all right. And then Nuisance. I thought about Nuisance for a little bit. And then I went over to my friend's house one day in college, and he was wearing a Nuisance t-shirt. And I was like, what is that? And he was like, it's a rap rock band from down south. I was waiting to tell you. And I was like, oh. And so I was like, okay. And then didn't really know what to do. And then something, I don't remember if I had reached out to somebody or if this was like, I hadn't talked about a name in so long that it was like talking about, hey, what am I going to call myself? Because, like, we're putting this thing together and, like, this is a demo. Like, what am I going to call myself? And one of my friends was straight up like, if you don't call yourself something to do with crows, I will slap you. And he was like, you have it sitting there.
Yeah.
He's like, one of the most memorable poems you wrote throughout your 4 years. And like, that was one of the things people really resonated with. He's like, not to mention, like, you created that identity. Like, he was like, that's like, come on.
Yes.
And so I was like, ah. And so then it was just toying with, like, what to do. And then I took Crowfather just because it was like, A, it's a nod to my Scandinavian heritage, and B, it's a nod to my love for video games. So yeah,
what's the
a
crow
it's
illusion?
a deep reference, and it's in Darksiders. It's in the Darksiders universe. So it's from years ago.
Okay.
Yeah.
Log a lot of hours in that one.
I mean, kinda. They were really good games. I liked them. So,
Fun.
but it was just one of those things where I was like, he's a pretty cool character.
But when time was come to record, was it Murderous Intent, or was there a project that preceded that? A demo, perhaps, that you needed to solidify your artist name for?
Yeah. There was, well, not to solidify the artist name, but there were a couple of projects that will remain lost to the ethos.
Perhaps under Nuisance or... Oh, okay.
No, just buried.
Okay.
Yeah, buried from artists that don't rap anymore.
Interesting.
Yep.
Interesting.
Um,
But
but
yeah,
like,
the earliest we could find was Murderous Intent. That's the earliest project, or is there's
good.
The earliest we're
The
wanting
earliest
to.
we need to be aware of. Yeah. No,
Exactly.
and just for real, like, there's nothing, you're not missing anything. And it was just like, it was like conceptual stuff. Beyond that, there's like one or two other things that were supposed to come out after that that got lost to a hard drive. Like,
Ooh.
there's been the woes, man. And so it's like,
what were we doing for beats early on?
for early on, it was like randomly, just random producers that I could get in
Nice.
touch with, or like for a while, my brother was making beats for me, and then him and I went in and out of touch, and that's gone back and forth for years. Yeah. And so that was cool, formative. And then other than that, like, man, yeah, I don't.
But it sounds like you've always had a really good ear for the beats.
Yeah.
Finding your own.
I mean, it's like, that's such a weird process for me, at least, because I don't even know. Like, some people have they have their producers. I've always had, because even when I had circled back to like, the one guy over the years or whatever, it was like we were always doing different stuff. It was like I would come back and he'd be like, "Cool, you're back. Let's experiment," like kind of stuff. And so that was always cool. I would say the only thing that's really maintained with my selections until the stuff that's coming out really is I've always loved stuff that really lets you know it was influenced by like jazz and blues. So keys, horns, stuff like that. Like, I love anything like that. And so, or like that will elicit some kind of emotion out of me before I even start writing to it.
Wow.
And then with the stuff that's coming out, the Late Nights and Side Quests, that's a way for me to kind of like branch a little bit and kind of do stuff that's more, wouldn't say necessarily like upbeatish, because I wouldn't say it's but it's also, it's just different because it's different samplings. It's it's sampling anime sounds. Like it's
And that's you're referencing your upcoming project with
Yes,
Chalk Villa.
yes.
Okay.
Jump the gun a little
No,
bit.
no worries.
no,
I mean,
I like-
it's news to me.
Yeah.
Exactly. The hot scoop, the hot
scoop.
the exclusive.
The exclusive.
Yeah,
Yeah,
man,
yeah.
that's huge. That'll be a lot of fun, and that's coming before the end of the year.
Absolutely.
Oh,
Not a solidified
baby.
date yet. It's just getting mixing done. Getting the mixing and mastering done and getting final touches. It's like, because like I said, getting track lists put together, because it's going to be a shorter thing, but there's a longer thing also coming before that.
We'll save that for.
Let's
we'll
get
hear
back
more about that later.
into
Yeah, rewind.
let's get back into what is
Right.
part of the Crowfather discography, and I would say, the first project of the Crowfather discography, as it stands, is Murderous Intent.
Yes.
And that's 2017.
Yes. Yeah, I would say, as like a full like Crowfather project, that's the first instance of me being out. Because I think before that, it was like a lot of just, even the projects that don't exist anymore, like it was playing around with the sound. It was trying to figure out like, what was I really trying to say, kind of stuff. And then it was like Murderous Intent happened, and I feel like that was the first like proof of concept for what I was trying to say. So where it was like I played with a lot of different sounds on that. Yeah.
Were you friends with or networking with other hip hop artists at the time? Because you did release like singles for it, and you did like promote it before it came out, and that's like complex as far as first projects go.
I was, just because I've always been like at shows. So like, whether it was like my brother and I going to shows, or like going out to shows with my friends, or whatever, so it was like I kind of knew people from the scene just because I had friends in the scene. And then it was like always so like kind of towing the line of wanting to be a part of it. And then it was like that was around the time too where I was like trying to be out and get people like, hey, I do this too. And so I was like trying to promote that stuff and like put out the singles and doing the singles at open mics. And shout out to Wild Times, rest in peace.
Oof.
Yeah, and Artist Quarter. Just because it was like trying to get people to be like, hey, yeah, I've been in these circles as a poet, but now I'm starting to like step into this other circle too. as a hip hop artist.
Right.
Because after I had come back, I was a little bridge the gap. After I did graduate college and came back to Minneapolis like full time, I was in the spoken word circuit for like 2 years trying to make on the nationals team.
Wow.
Yeah. So there was a
What?
time where you could have caught me at Kieran's Irish Pub, like doing spoken word poetry. Yeah. And so that was like, again, that was all kind of formative into leading into everything else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's so interesting.
We are sitting down with Crowfather here on DogStar, learning about the origin stories, the trials and the tribulations, and the evolution and the honing of the craft as well.
Yeah, do you have any advice? We've only got like 30 seconds left for somebody who is putting together their first project. Or what advice would you have given yourself before putting out Murderous Intent?
Take your time, but not too much time. Like, be patient and like get it right, but it doesn't have to be perfect. Because like you're always going to improve.
First of many, if this is what you really want to do.
Exactly.
Words of wisdom from the father of the crows, Crowfather.
Crowfather, one word everywhere. To listen to it at Crowfather MPLS on Instagram.
CrowfatherMPLS.com.
Oh, Crowfather MPLS. That's so official. That's sweet. We got to ask you more about that. We'll be right back. Follow us, DogStar Podcast.
Bow wow.
Bow wow.
Caw caw.
Bow wow.
Welcome back to DogStar.
Sitting down with Crowfather. We got up to the first available project on your discography, which is Murderous Intent, which was an album.
Yeah.
Are you an album guy? Do you love?
I thought, at the time I was. Yeah. I mean, I always liked, I grew up on the hip hop albums that were like 20 some tracks. And like you had skits. And you had a theme throughout the whole thing. You had characters. You had concept, like all of it. Like it wasn't so far fetched to have a rapper doing concept albums like Kendrick is. But like, I mean, bit far fetched to do it on the level that he's doing it, sure. But like, it wasn't so crazy to have these long albums that's told stories. So like, that's for my first one. I was like, I need to do this. And then after like, it's like I didn't need to do that.
I mean, 3 years later, Crossroads comes out half as long.
Right? Half as long, but then I felt like it really was able to showcase like my growth.
Yeah, definitely.
Because it's a different sound. It was like I felt like listening back to it, like it's definitely more comfortable with the cadences, or starting to get more comfortable in the cadences, kind of listening to the beat more. Yeah. And that was also like, it was Crossroads because like I was changing how it sounded on the record. I was changing kind of like where I was at. I was I was just starting to like pursue things more seriously. And so I was like, we were planning to pump a lot into the marketing for that. And I was set to open at Poorhouse for Nerdy.
Wow.
And then COVID happened.
Whoa.
Wow.
Terrible timing.
So, yeah. And so that was like, it was like whatever. But it happened.
Right.
And so then all shows got canceled. I mean, everything got canceled indefinitely forever.
Yeah, that project came out March 17th, 2020. That's terrible.
Yep.
Terrible.
Legit, like 3 weeks before lockdown. Like it came out and we were like, had just announced the show. And then a week later, I think we announced that we were canceling the show.
Oof.
And so then that basically, it came out to deaf ears, which like it was just another. We were just talking in the break about like perseverance and being able to be around long enough to get noticed.
Yeah, why not throw in the towel when that happened?
Right, exactly. Because it's like at least for with my trajectory, it hasn't really felt like waiting for the hit record. It's just been like, can I survive all the knockdowns until I make a good record that people are like, damn, he's been around for a long time. And like at least like to know that I put the work in.
I mean, 2 years later, I assume that's what you were doing from 2020 to 2022. 2 years later for the Crows drops.
Yeah.
And what I'd say a compilation of local artists.
Thank you.
Local producers as well, or kind of a grab bag like you've kind of always done?
That was all DJ Hayes.
What?
Yeah.
Every track?
Every track. He produced that whole album.
That's so sick. How did you cross paths with him?
He's my half brother.
Legit, I knew it. I knew it.
We were digging, and we didn't know for sure. But what a connection! Yeah, that's some hip hop history right there.
Yeah,
legends. And that's the on and off? I mean, I
Yeah, yeah.
won't dig into it too
Oh,
heavy
no,
right
no,
now,
yeah,
but
yeah. No, that's the on and off relationships
wow.
where it's like every few years we come back around, maybe try something again. But yeah.
That adds to the legend of your discography as
Oh,
well.
thanks.
So, like, when it's on, when it's off,
Right, right.
like,
But
that's so
pick
interesting.
the pen up during COVID, or did your artistry take a hit?
Um, I mean,
Was Out of My Mind off of Crossroads, or was that its standalone
that was a
single?
standalone thing. I
So
did
that's
that with
December 2020.
Oh, my
that
bad.
was that came out because that was like the that was part of the quarantine mixtape project that happened. There was a
Oh.
whole bunch of local artists. Shout out to Uncle T.
Yeah.
Um, she had reached out and basically was like, "Do you want to put something on this?" Because they put together it was like a whole mixtape they put out, and then there was like a playlist that came along with it too. And there was talks of doing a show like once
Right,
lockdown
but you
lifted,
do
but then
a
it never lifted.
right, or do a
Uh,
quarantine themes show after
yeah,
quarantine's
right after
over, it's like,
quarantine.
people ain't gonna
But it was like, but there were some bangers on there, so I was
Yeah?
like, it inspired a couple of things. But yeah, that came out kind of in between there.
Fun.
We're still kind of playing with things. I did put out a music video for that though. It was pretty cool.
That's huge. Yeah, Out of My Mind, and that's the oldest video we could find as well
Yeah,
on your
yes.
well, you said there's, poetry somewhere. That's not on
Somewhere.
your
It's
YouTube.
not on my YouTube.
Find
It's
it.
not.
Put it in the link in the
N
comments.
Probably under Nick White if you have to search for it,
Possibly.
because I wanna find it as well.
Possibly.
Just connecting the dots for
Just
you
connecting
guys.
the
But
dots there.
the process of beat selection
Mm.
has always kind of been similar, correct? You don't have too much written beforehand. You are inspired by the instrumental
Yeah, for the most part. I mean, it's like I kind of have an idea for what I might want to say, or like,
thematically.
oh yeah, or like what mood I'm in. Like this is kind
Mhm.
of where I'm leaning. And then, but most times, like I'll listen to beats and just keep cycling through until like something either a lot of hopefully it's right away.
Mhm.
It's like, oh no, this is what this looks like to me, or it's every once in a while there's like I know there's a cadence there. I know there's potential for it. I know I can write something good to it, but maybe it doesn't come right away.
Right.
And so then that's where it comes in, like just sitting for, not sitting, well, yeah, sometimes sitting just for hours, like not necessarily in one day, but like over the course of time, like constantly beating my head, like what are we gonna do with this? Like what's
Mhm.
coming out of this? Trying different cadences, seeing what fits, and then waiting for the one that's kind of like that. Oh, that one, yeah. And so it's like beat selection is, for a while it was kind of like what was available that was dope,
Mm.
what hasn't been taken by other artists kind of
Right.
thing. Yeah. Or now it's more so like just where I'm at, and like especially like planning these upcoming projects. It was like I definitely sat down and like took my time. What sounds like a Crowfather beat.
Mm.
And so that's like that's where it was kind of like the dichotomy of like, having a project that's coming and then having another one that's kind of like just conceptualizing right now.
Yeah.
It's because I get to play with that dichotomy of it, where it's like, this is this project. This is the lighthearted whatever side of this. This is
Mhm.
the nerd side of Crowfather. That's what this EP is. And then this other thing, we're not really sure yet. But everything that I'm writing that doesn't really fit into that is kind of being filed away to
That's huge.
kind of sit for the other one, and really like we'll see what that kind of turns into, because it's giving the other things that I'm writing feel like more of a sequel to For the Crows.
Mm.
Interesting.
So
Okay,
not where I would
okay.
like do like For the Crows 2, but more of like maybe more of a full length kind of a concept thing.
Fun.
So because the reason I named that For the Crows was because it harkened back to that poem
Mm.
that I had named the same thing about, like kind of, it felt like my kind of like coming out and being like, hey, I'm still here, still doing this, still resilient,
Yeah.
still rapping about this stuff, like come
Yeah.
along.
For the Crows 2022.
Yes.
And that also had videos, is it?
There's a lyric video for Crowin', there's a lyric video for Facelift, and then there's I have an actual music video that I did with Nerdy for the Crows, the title track.
Oh.
And that was fun. We did that one in my backyard. Yeah.
Sick.
Yeah, just basically had like a barbecue and had a bunch of people come over and hang out. It was a good time. Shout out to Ryan for recording that. Yeah.
January 2023, you were featured on a Nerdy track.
Yes.
Great performer.
Yeah, great performer.
Oh.
Yeah, that is an awesome track. That track. I feel like we captured a like a vibe with that track, cuz it's like I always rap about kind of being, like I said, being resilient, kind of like surviving your own depression, that kind of stuff. But then like to have like that, his little flavor of like I say it in there, like his flavor of like dopamine and kind of popness to it. But we're both still talking about that kind of melancholic subject. It was like we caught such a vibe with that. And that's one of those songs where like it it gave me a dream. I had always said when I started out doing this and I really started doing this seriously, I was doing it for the reason of like reaching out to people like me that needed to hear this stuff.
Yeah.
Because like I think back to like how much I needed to hear Linkin Park, how much I needed to hear Chester and Mike like talking about their anxiety and depression in ways that you wouldn't understand unless you had it. Or kind of, I was like, oh. And so that was kind of always the point, always the goal was to kind of reach those people. And because of that song, we had a woman come up to us at a show. We did that like a year or two ago. And she said that saved her, that she like listened, she was going through a rough time in her life and she'd been listening to that song every morning, and that our words had saved her. And that was like, at 5, I felt like I hit a different, whereas like it doesn't matter anymore. Like I could be as successful as what I do, does not matter. I don't, that was why right there, is because I was her at some point.
Yeah.
Like needing to hear that from a stranger in a way that like helped me be like, nah, I'm sticking around. And so like that was incredible.
It's got to be reassuring.
Oh man. That was like really cool just to know that like, yes, I did it. Like one person, like that's one person I'm helping. Yeah. And that's cool. That's why I do this. Like, so that was awesome. And then just kind of carrying that like into the rest of the stuff too, where it's like learning from that and what resonated with people on that, to be able to like have the new stuff kind of carry that same vibe of like, yeah, it's depressing, but we're here.
It's a vibe. Exactly.
Yeah.
And authentic as well. And I don't think it's a coincidence that that's the type of message, like when you're speaking authentically, that's what's connecting with people. I think that's so cool.
Appreciate that.
We got about a minute and 30 seconds left. Last track, bringing us up to date in the discography, is Mutants. Came out in October of 2023. You had referenced briefly Late Nights and Side Quests. What else is on the horizon?
I keep
that you can reveal. I
was gonna say that I can reveal. I don't know. Nothing.
Reverb open mic on the 12th?
September 12th. I'm doing the Reverb open mic. I'm their featured artist, so I'll be dipping into my poetry bag, kind of doing some of that, and then also like I might do 1 or 2 acapellas just to kind of showcase some of the new music that's coming up.
Fun.
So I'm itching. Whenever I do live performances, which keep an eye out, I will be around in St. Paul at the end of September. So,
nice.
crowfathermpls.com/shows. We'll be announcing that soon. But there I'll be doing some of the new stuff too, just because it's like I said, man, I'm itching. It's like we're down to like the last 1 or 2, and I'm just solidifying recording situations, and it's like, but the couple that have already been recorded and we have live tracks for, it's like I've been playing the hell out of them because it's just fun. Because again, it's like, you know, hearing the growth and stuff, and now it's been a couple years, and I'm just dying to show everybody where I'm at. So,
we've been dying to sit down with you. Thank you again for coming through. We really appreciate it. Keep doing what you're doing.
We're about to hear For the Crows featuring Nerd D and The Rain featuring DJ Hayes, both off of For the Crows.
Nope.
This has been Crowfather here on DogStar.
Follow us, DogStar Podcast. Bow wow.
Bow wow.
I'm optimistic with my pessimism because it's worth it. I'm just a guy in real life that's remembering how to breathe. See, I've got ink for blood and ballpoints for fingertips. My words are like birds. This is for the crows. I represent the little kids. These teachers said they probably should have been on Ritalin. Sitting in the back of the classroom, barely listening. Still got the sarcasm to ask if I happy with the gifted kids. Y'all wanna label me a little different? Understand that I'm riddled with the differences between me and the homecoming queen. There ain't no reason to be, so I'ma get up and leave before the DJ even gets to play the beat that I need. Mariah's here early and she's causing a scene, and that means Freak is powered by lithium batteries. So I'll be doing battle till school, 30 at least. You understood that you should probably come with me. You probably got the knowledge of trauma and how to breathe. When we wander in the valleys of forgotten prodigies, hear the call, that's the rally, come along and follow me.
1, 2, 3 to the 4. If your neck's still steady, you ain't ready to go. 5, 6, 7 to the outro. Didn't know then, but we think you know now, go. 9, 10, let the record spin. Put it on together and we do it again. Wings up, we about to roll. Homie, that's how it goes. It's for the crows.
Never been afraid to claim my bad temper, and I ain't no shame in explaining my sad weather. Cause I can't complain when the pain's made me better. When the strain gave me strength to gain in my endeavors. Hating it, when you gonna quit, little idiot. Tell them this is it, how it is. Raised by a narcissist, day in, day out, I was made to be targeted. The way to my rage paved in them arguments. Felt caged when I had to scream why. Couple years after brother suicide, realized it was probably you or I. Never in my life have I been afraid to die. Nothing good comes from keeping inside. I'm one of the crooked young, you can see it within my eyes. If something could be done, I spit it within these lines to keep the kids alive, give them a little piece of mind.
1, 2, 3 to the 4. If your neck's still steady, you ain't ready to go. 5, 6, 7 to the outro. Didn't know that, but we think you know now, though. 9, 10, let the record spin. Put it on together and we do it again. Wings up, we about to roll. Homie, that's how it goes. It's for the crows. 1, 2, 3 to the 4. If your neck's still steady, you ain't ready to go. 5, 6, 7 to the outro. Didn't know then, but we think you know now, though. 9, 10, let the record spin. Put it on together and we do it again. Wings up, we about to roll. Homie, that's how it goes. It's for the crows.
I've got ink for blood, ballpoints for fingertips. Catch me chillin' wildin' out inside my house, playing video games up on my couch. 8 years of therapy under my belt, and I still can't shoot down all of these rain clouds. But now I smile with my fangs out. I take pride in my breakdowns. Can't even lie with my face. I'm tired of my days getting cradled to the grave, and I still looking younger, shouldn't matter. And I stay sober so I don't stagger when I'm walking these beats off and listen for the clatter. Someone tell me what's the matter. I'm just another old soul conditioned for disaster. Wishing that my past was a little more nostalgic. Another depressed kid thinking different now. Another attempted Nick digging for his outlet. Someone help him out quick. But I still got too many rain clouds. Yeah, I still got too many rain clouds. I still got.
A few hours here of storms, and then we'll start to see things wind down. Wind down.
Yo. Racking my brain around how to explain just how just insane it sounds that I maintain my ground within the pain abound. Somehow it's made me stronger. I belong in the rain now. Please just leave me be. I need to keep sleeping, I need to dream. In between these sheets, I might find some peace in the decent memories where I don't have faith. I don't need to be anybody that somebody ever needed me to be. Mistreated me to need, misguided me to see, misleaded me to be compliant with lies and deceit. There's lines that bind me on my couple loyalties. If it wasn't for that, I'd be gone in a minute. Knocking on death's door, I always been a cynic. Go back to that morning, I was whipping in a Civic in the Spanish. Take all of this damage and forget it, but I live for the panic. I love when it's frigid, so I'll stay in the cold until I feel it in my bones. Hope to kill a few clouds for the family that I chose. But I still got too many rain clouds. Yeah, I still got too many rain clouds. I still got.
A few hours here of storms, and then we'll start to see things wind down. Wind down. Tomorrow. Wind.